Tonight, another 3 members of the Iranian women's football team decide to return home days after being granted humanitarian visas to stay in Australia. Sirens sound as missiles are intercepted in Israel as Iran launches new strikes on Gulf nations after US strikes on Hague Island. Floodwaters creep closer to Longreach as river levels continue to rise in drenched outback Queensland. And Denmark's King and Queen arrive in Canberra for the second leg of their tour down under. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Meredith, Sheehan. The entire Iranian women's football team was offered asylum in Australia. Now only 3 players remain. More women have changed their mind about staying and are on their way back to Iran. Australian supporters say threats from the Iranian regime must have got through to the women, whose safety they say is now at risk.
Less than a week in an Australian safe house, now on their way back to Iran. These 3 women granted asylum in Australia have changed their minds.
I'm not surprised. I'm also disappointed. I think all of us are going through a rollercoaster of emotions right now.
7 women from the Iranian football team were granted humanitarian visas by the Home Affairs Minister, a chance to escape the regime that labelled them traitors for refusing to sing their national anthem. Last week, 1 woman decided to leave their safe house and return to Iran. Overnight, another 3 followed.
I am worried about them. I can only imagine the pressure that they feel.
The Iranian regime has claimed victory. Its state news agency saying players defeated the enemy's plans against this team and resisted Australia's psychological warfare. Those campaigning for the team to stay claim the team handler who was granted asylum was applying pressure on behalf of the regime.
I think the main question remains on how these threats had been communicated with the girls while they've been in a safe house.
The staff member which did remain here in Australia with them had a role to play in this. We know she's been spreading a lot of propaganda.
The 3 women who left overnight have rejoined their teammates in Malaysia, where they're waiting to return to Iran. Government sources say they've looked into the claims that the sole staff member granted asylum was passing on threats from the Iranian regime, but say that they've got no reason to believe that that is true. Advocates, however, say something clearly has spooked the women.
These intimidations are very real. Their families are detained, some are even missing.
3 women from the team remain, and many Australians are hoping they stay. Isabel Rowe, ABC News, Canberra.
Donald Trump is pushing other countries to help secure the Strait of Hormuz as oil prices soar. The US president says he's not yet ready to make a deal with Iran, instead threatening to again hit one of its most strategic assets. It comes as the United Arab Emirates government told the ABC Iran's decision to attack Gulf states was irrational.
Blast after blast in Tehran. Israel striking an Iranian space agency building being used to develop military satellites. The United States has provided more detail on its strikes on Hague Island, which handles the bulk of Iran's oil exports, saying it hit more than 90 military targets. Donald Trump telling NBC, "We may hit it a few more times just for fun." Taking to social media from Florida, the president also urged other countries to deploy warships to stop Iran blocking oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Hopefully China, France, Japan, South Korea, the UK and others that are affected by this artificial constraint will send ships to the area.
The Strait of Hormuz will not be opened. Not a single American Navy vessel will be allowed to enter the Persian Gulf.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has previously said he wasn't considering sending ships to the Strait. Australia instead deploying a surveillance aircraft and 85 personnel to the United Arab Emirates.
Having the wedge tail, which is a remarkable detection mechanism, is incredibly useful for us.
A senior member of the UAE government telling the ABC Iran's decision to strike its neighbours took them by surprise.
It's been pretty unprecedented what's happened and almost unhinged.
We're racing down to turn number 1.
The attacks have also forced the cancellation of the Formula One Grand Prix events in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Unfortunate situation. That was a decision that has to be taken considering exactly what is going on in that region.
As well as hitting Gulf states, Iran continues to strike Israel, a missile damaging cars in Tel Aviv, hours after opponents of the war had been demanding its end.
The vast majority of Jewish Israelis support the war, according to national polls. But here in Tel Aviv, protesters have taken to the streets to rally against the escalating conflict in both Iran and Lebanon.
I'm against this war in every cell of my body.
I don't like kids and civilians being killed. I think it's pretty simple.
The World Health Organization says 12 healthcare workers died in Lebanon when a medical facility was hit in the south of the country.
The Lebanese people did not choose this war. They were dragged into it.
Israel's pursuit of the Iranian-backed Hezbollah now estimated to have killed more than 800 people. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
Markets are now saying a rate hike on Tuesday is a near certainty after the war in Iran caused a surge in oil prices. But Alan Kohler asks whether it's the best way to deal with this kind of inflation and whether rates should actually be cut instead.
2 weeks ago, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, Michelle Bullock, gave a speech which included the RBA's latest inflation forecast. Here it is. Now, that was 3 days after the United States and Israel attacked Iran, when it looked like being a fairly quick business and the oil price had barely gone up. Since then, things have got a lot messier, with Iran sending explosive drones all over the Middle East, US President Donald Trump demanding unconditional surrender, and the pugnacious Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, being, well, pugnacious.
We have only just begun to fight.
And then last week, an interview with the Reserve Bank's Deputy Governor, Andrew Hawser, was published, updating the Governor's comments, pointing out that the earlier inflation forecast was made well before the US and Israel attacked Iran. Mr Hawser said further increases in prices from Iran is not a helpful development. How long the price of oil remains high and whether it keeps rising will, of course, depend on how long the fight goes on. But the bond market is predicting inflation. Money markets are now saying a rate hike on Tuesday is a near certainty. Now, that's a big change from a 30% chance before the Hawser interview. And for the next meeting in May, it's a real certainty, according to the futures market, with another one expected later this year. But this inflation will be caused by supply shortages, not booming demand, and higher interest rates will not open the Persian Gulf. And as Andrew Hawser himself said, the rising oil price will press down on global activity. So the only reason to raise interest rates is to control inflation expectations. That is, to persuade Australians that the RBA is on the case and won't let inflation get out of hand. But the economic consensus is starting to shift away from the cruelty of adding to an oil shock with a rate shock and towards maybe cutting rates to prevent an oil shock recession. So on Tuesday, as well as watching what the Governor does, keep an eye on what she says about that.
Former Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce says he regrets not doing more when in power to secure Australia's fuel reserves. The nation is grappling with fuel shortages triggered by the war in the Middle East, with oil tankers travelling through the Strait of Hormuz. Disrupted, the federal government has released close to a week's worth of fuel from its emergency stockpile to boost supply. In an interview with insiders this morning, Mr Joyce says the coalition government could have done more.
The coalition at that time did something stupid. Right now, they're not going to do anything about it. The Labor Party can't say, well, it's your stupid decision. They should be saying, rather than spend $1.1 billion on low-carbon fuels, like so we can get ripped off on green hydrogen, how about you just get your refineries going again?
An 18-year-old is dead and another critically injured after they fell up to 100 metres while climbing a Sunshine Coast mountain. Emergency services were called to Mount Biawar in the Glasshouse Mountains just before 10:30 this morning. An 18-year-old Brisbane woman died while an 18-year-old man, also from Brisbane, was airlifted to hospital in a critical condition. 4 others were rescued from the mountain uninjured. The popular climbing spot is closed due to poor weather conditions. After weeks of wet conditions, swollen rivers and creeks are again raging in Queensland's far north, which received more than 400 millimetres of rain over the weekend. In the west, the town of Longreach is waiting for a slow-moving flood, which is tonight still inching its way closer.
Hundreds of kilometres from the ocean, but still waking to water views.
The coast has come right to us today. Like the wind blowing here today, you can see the waves on the river. It's just amazing.
The Landsborough Highway at Longreach, seemingly floating on water.
I've never seen a flood like this. It's an enormous flood on a beautiful sunny day.
It's incomprehensible. Like seriously unfathomable. We were here yesterday and it was maybe like 150 metres down the road, so this is just wild.
The full scale on show from the sky. But those without a plane got a little more creative. After days of waiting, floodwater finally reached backyards on the edge of town.
It is approaching some of the lower set houses, but at this stage we don't think that there will be many, if any, houses that will get water over the floorboards.
A lack of flood gauges again causing distress in outback Queensland.
In 2026, the fact that we're relying on a manual read, gauges that are not connected, it's just not acceptable for the safety of any community.
This has been water that's been in the system and coming for a long time, and because of a lack of gauges in many parts, they have been flying blind.
Emergency services on standby, not as busy as anticipated.
This water is now making its way to small communities in the Channel Country and will eventually end up in Kaditunda Lake Eyre. Authorities are now shifting their focus to the towns of Stonehenge, Junda and Windora. Hannah Walsh, ABC News, Longreach.
Former NRL footballer Chris Walker has been arrested over alleged domestic violence offences. The ex-Queensland State of Origin star, who also played for the Broncos, Titan and some other teams, was arrested on the Gold Coast last night. Police say the 46-year-old was allegedly hiding in a backyard in Currumbin waters. No charges have been laid and Mr Walker is helping police with inquiries. The King and Queen of Denmark have arrived in Canberra this evening after spending the first leg of their 6-day visit to Australia at Uluru. It's the first Danish state visit to the country in 40 years and the couple's first trip to Australia since the King took the throne.
No red carpet, but red sand for King Frederick and Queen Mary.
We are happy to see the royals and to take them on a tour. It was really proud.
The couple welcomed by Anungnu with traditional dance before meeting students at a local training cafe and ending the day with a slightly overcast sunset at the Rock.
To start the visit here in the centre of Australia is quite something.
Their Majesties are visiting to talk about renewable industries and partnerships with Australia. But what most people seem interested in talking about is how excited they are to see the Australian-born Queen.
My eldest daughter said to me, "Mum, it's like a dream, isn't it? You go and have a beer with someone and you end up being a princess."
Almost Disney fairy tale, and we all kind of dreamed that would happen, and it actually happened to an Australian.
Onlookers were interested in everything about the Queen, from what she was wearing.
I hope she has a flight net as cool as ours.
And how to greet her, to ensuring the Tasmanian-born Queen felt at home.
Welcome home, Mary! Have you been to Uluru before?
No, it's my first time.
And what did you think?
Well, we've had a great walk around. It's magical.
Some magic at the Rock before jetting off to Canberra to dine with the Prime Minister and the Governor-General. Victoria Ellis, ABC News, Uluru.
The Danish royals received a ceremonial welcome in Canberra. Reporter Lily Nothling joins us now from outside Government House. Lily, what's the royal couple's plans for tonight?
Well, the King and Queen have been welcomed with some fanfare here in the nation's capital, including a 21-gun salute and a military procession at Government House. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and Governor-General Sam Mostyn have been among the VIPs here to greet them. The Royals have signed the visitors book, and a little bit later tonight will be the guests of honour at a state dinner, where both the King and Governor-General will give speeches. This is the first time the Royals have visited Australia since the King and Queen became the King and Queen of Denmark in 2024. And tomorrow they'll visit the Australian War Memorial, also here in Canberra, where they'll meet with members of the public. This will be the first opportunity people have to get up close and personal with the couple, and it is expected to draw a crowd. Now, after their time in Canberra, the royal couple will visit Victoria and Tasmania, where Queen Mary was born and raised. This tour, dubbed a homecoming for Queen Mary, wraps up on Thursday.
Lily Nothling reporting there from Canberra. South Australians are just days out from their state election, with widely felt grievances of housing and the cost of living shaping up to be the key issues. The SA poll has also been considered the first electoral test for One Nation after recently surging in opinion polls. Here's political reporter Evelyn Manfield.
It's happy hour in more ways than one at this small pub in South Australia.
Drop the energy.
Meeting supporters for one selfie at a time at One Nation's Pauline Hanson and her right-hand man in SA, Corey Bernardi, hitting the regions from Mount Gambier in the state's southeast.
The main one is immigration. That's the main one. We've got to sort that out in housing for a start.
To Maitland on the York Peninsula.
I think just the cost of living for a young family like us.
Controversy around their history of offensive remarks not top of mind.
Are you going to be the party, though, that can realistically make these differences for people here?
Well, I tell you what, look at the way it is now. Have the other parties done any good for this country? No, they haven't.
If you look for One Nation's health policy, you'll find nothing. Housing policy, virtually nothing. Economic policy, not anything.
This is the start of what will be a week-long blitz for Pauline Hanson across South Australia, as she hopes to prove One Nation's popularity extends beyond opinion polls.
A good result is representation in the parliament. That's my benchmark for success.
I will absolutely assure you that One Nation will poll number one in many seats.
Racing for Premier, Labor's Peter Malinowskis appears to be running with the wind, but he's keen to not dismiss those voting with the right-wing party.
Success breeds complacency. Complacent leads to defeat. Only the paranoid survive. And, you know, my whole team, we've got a healthy dose of paranoia. That's why we're out there working as hard as we can.
The Liberals under Ashton Hearn don't want to seep votes to the right either.
I think people are looking to One Nation because they're annoyed that major parties haven't got the important things right. But that's why I'm laser focused on getting the basics right.
As they face a potential electoral wildcard. Evelyn Manfield, ABC News, Maitland.
Australia's role in the adoption of thousands of children from South Korea will be examined by a new inquiry after investigations there found a history of widespread corruption and fraud. But other Asian countries also have murky pasts involving baby farms, trafficking syndicates and fabricated documents. Now, adoptees from these countries are demanding the government expand its inquiry. James Oaten has this special report.
It's breakfast time in Darwin.
Alright, I'm gonna go some cheese on this cheesy scrambled eggs.
Are you hungry, Baba?
And Gabby Beckley is serving up for her two kids.
Breakfast of champions right here.
Gabby knows what it's like to be in a loving, supportive family. But growing up, there were big questions about her adoption. Who were her biological parents? And why was she put up for adoption?
You kind of feel like you're a boat in the ocean without an anchor.
Gabby was adopted from Sri Lanka at a time when the island nation was rife with poverty and civil war. At 19, her adoptive parents helped her find her biological mum and dad, something few adoptees get to do.
My heart felt complete that day.
But there was an upsetting revelation.
She was promised money and saris by the people in Sri Lanka organising the adoption, but she didn't receive any of those things. Being left with nothing in the same destitute position she was when we were born made her life still really hard.
Gabby's since learnt of many more adoptions with murky pasts.
There was a lot of people that got rich by selling children.
Across the country, another adoptee is trying to uncover her past. Kimbra Butterworth plans to visit Taiwan with her husband, but the chances of finding answers are slim.
All of this is like fake.
Unlike Gabby, the family names on her adoption papers are forged.
That's a big thought for me, that I may never find my family.
That's Kimbra as a baby. The woman holding her is Julie Chu, who was sentenced in the 1980s for running a baby trafficking syndicate. But the Australian government never notified Kimbra's family. Instead, it was the media. Decades later, Kimbra sought answers from South Australian authorities.
And my mum just broke down and started sobbing. Government never contacted them, never checked up on them, never gave them information, never did an investigation to affirm or deny.
Just to give the public a bit of exposure about them.
While adoptees like Gabby and Kimbra had supportive Australian families, others like Linnell Long did not.
My adoption was facilitated by my adoptive parents in Australia, where they hired a lawyer privately in Vietnam. They essentially paid him to source and find a child.
Despite growing up in Australia, the adoption was never official until she was almost an adult. Her Australian father abused her. The adoption later annulled.
He was found guilty and he's actually on the sex offender registry.
She's dedicated her life to helping others.
These adoptees, they struggle with all sorts of abuse, whether that be emotional abuse, whether that be sexual abuse, physical abuse. We want there to be a thorough investigation as to what has occurred, who should have been responsible, where the gaps are.
The federal government is investigating the murky past of international adoptions, but the focus is on the South Korean program. That's despite calls from adoptees like Linnell, Kimbra, Gabby, and even the Korean community that the entire program needs to be scrutinised.
It does hurt because you do want to be acknowledged.
The Federal Social Services Minister says the Korean inquiry's an important first step.
We're certainly not ruling out looking at other programs in the future.
But without a commitment to do more, adoptees like Gabby fear their stories will be sidelined.
Having that acknowledgement will give so much healing and grace to people. It will help them move on and move forward with their life.
If you or someone you know is experiencing distress, please contact a Lifeline on 13 11 14. Oscar Piastri's disastrous start to the Formula One season continues, failing to start the Chinese Grand Prix. Piastri qualified in fifth, but along with teammate Lando Norris, missed the formation lap due to problems with their cars. The pair then withdrew from the race. It follows Piastri's crash on the formation lap at the Australian Grand Prix, meaning he has now missed the opening 2 races of the 2026 season. Justin Holbrook has transformed the wooden Spooners in the NRL, breathing new life into Newcastle's attack. But an impressive win over Manly has come at an enormous cost, losing both Kalen Ponga and Dylan Brown to injury. Meanwhile, Penrith have cemented themselves as premiership favourites, dominating the Sharks in Bathurst.
Beating Manly at Brookvale is never easy. Nobody told Newcastle.
Brimming with confidence here at Brookvale.
It was supposed to be a coming out party for the New Look Knights until disaster struck.
I'm worried about this for Kalen Ponga.
He left the field and didn't return. Dylan Brown showed why he's being paid $1.3 million a year, but lightning struck twice, the halfback injuring his knee joining his fullback in the sheds.
2.5 million of their salary cap gone in the space of 10 or 12 minutes.
Souring a comprehensive 20-point win.
Get scans and go from there and see what it is.
Grade 2 for Dill, so I'm not a physio, but I'm guessing around that sort of 3 to 4 week mark.
The Panthers and Sharks met in Bathurst, and the Master quickly went to work. Brian To'o crossed 3 plays later.
To'o in the corner.
After 2 tries against the Broncos, Thomas Jenkins held his starting spot and held on to a beautiful pass from Blaze Talangi. Penrith went bang bang. They pounced on a loose ball, and Nathan Cleary made it 18-0 at the break.
A hammer blow for the Sharks on the stroke of half-time.
Jenkins went over again in the 44th minute, his second try-scoring double in as many weeks. Their attack on song, but it's Penrith's impenetrable defence that makes them so dangerous.
They won't let in a thing.
It took 137 minutes of football to break the brick wall, a sole Cronulla try, the only points they've conceded this season. Mackenzie Colohan, ABC News.
North Melbourne has kicked off its AFL season in promising style, dominating Port Adelaide by 46 points at Docklands Stadium. Coach Alistair Clarkson wants to play finals within 2 years, and after a difficult period for the club, today's result could signal the beginning of a new dawn.
Where were you the day, North fans, that you turned the corner?
That may sound a little premature, but North Melbourne fans can finally afford a little optimism. It was a glimpse into the future on and off the field, as Dylan Stephens played his best game as a Roo.
Nails it! Big moment!
There was some long-range resistance from Port Adelaide, but the Kangaroos had all the answers.
And that is as good as it gets!
The power faded in the second half as Nick Larkey booted 4 goals in his first game as captain. After a slight wobble in the final term, Paul Curtis settled the Roos.
Inspirational!
A disappointing start to Josh Carr's coaching career, while Alistair Clarkson couldn't stop smiling. The Roos to face West Coast next week. Melbourne had its own look at what's to come as Latrell Pickett sparked the MCG with his first goal. Melbourne and St Kilda swapped the lead 13 times in quarters 2 and 3. And the highlights reel kept getting bigger. Liam Ryan worse for wear after climbing to new heights. In the seesawing contest, emerging forward Jacob van Rooyen was enormous with a bag of 6 goals. And it was the Demons who proved too strong, overcoming the highly touted Saints by 13 points. And Collingwood veteran Scott Pendlebury has been suspended for the first time in his 427-game career. This bump in last night's defeat to Adelaide deemed a one-match ban. Tom Maddox, ABC News.
Matilda's defender Ellie Carpenter says the team is ready for a tough challenge against China in Tuesday's Asian Cup semi-final in Perth. Pre-tournament favourite Japan booked a spot in the semi-finals after a crushing 7-0 win over the Philippines in Sydney. Japan's opponent in the last 4 will be South Korea, who thrashed Uzbekistan 6-0. Carpenter says China is a well-drilled opponent under former Matilda's coach Ante Milicic.
They're a tough team to break down. They have great attacking threats as well, so we know they'll be organised. They're a great team. They're the reigning champions as well of this tournament, so it's a big game for us, but we're ready.
The Queensland Reds have claimed their 3rd straight win in the Super Rugby Pacific, downing the New South Wales Waratahs 26-17 at Lang Park. The Reds held a 19-17 lead with 7 minutes left to play. Tars outside centre Tristan Riley appeared to score a try, which was disallowed under review. Carter Gordon scored his 2nd try of the night minutes later to seal the win for the Reds. The Queenslanders travel to Fiji next week to face Fiji, while New South Wales return to Sydney to host the Auckland Blues. Australian Georgia Ganev and her guide Ethan Jackson have finished 7th in the slalom vision impaired event at the Winter Paralympics in Italy. Australia's youngest ever female Winter Paralympian, 16-year-old Liana France, was 14th in the slalom standing event. Let's check tomorrow's weather in the capitals. Brisbane will be partly cloudy, mostly sunny in Sydney, cloudy in Canberra, showers in Melbourne, Hobart and Adelaide, Mostly sunny in Perth and showers and a possible storm for Darwin. You've been watching a national edition of ABC News. If you'd like to watch your local edition, just go to ABC iView, where you can stream it live or catch up anytime. I'm Meredith Sheehan. Thanks for your company.